Pray the real live forever, man. Pray the fakes get exposed. What's up, my dudes? MX Simulator is the greatest of all time. So, if you guys don't know, I just recently made a video called Reflex is the greatest of all time, MX versus ATV Reflex. And if you actually watched that video, you'd realize that I said anytime that I was saying that Reflex was the greatest, I was saying Reflex was the greatest arcade motocross game of all time, okay? There's definitely a separation there, and I think it's a bit unfair to Reflex to not call it the greatest of all time just because there's an MX Simulator, you see what I'm saying? I like to kind of split both of those worlds apart whenever I'm talking about which one's the greatest. I mean, I feel like Reflex is the greatest at what it does in its own category, but if you take a step back and just look at all motocross games in general, period, like simulators, arcade motocross games, mobile motocross games, hybrid simulator between arcade motocross games, like any kind of motocross game out there, period, if you take a step back and look at all of it, that's really where you see the MX Simulator being the greatest of all time. And I know right off the bat, some of you guys are going to want to jump to this opinion or conclusion that you're not really liking what I'm saying, you're kind of hating what I'm saying, you're not really agreeing with me, and that's okay. I'm not saying you have to love MX Simulator. I'm not saying that whatever you're saying about your favorite motocross game isn't true. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. I'm just going in here and telling you guys my reasons why I think MX Simulator is the greatest motocross game of all time, but just knowing that I feel like Reflex is the greatest arcade motocross game of all time here. So, right off the bat, I think there's a lot of you guys out there that kind of get that sort of opinion and disagreement with me because either A, you've never even played MX Simulator, or B, you haven't actually played MX Simulator long enough to realize what actually makes it the greatest of all time. Because specifically with a simulator, it takes you so long just to get to the point to where you even realize what's going on with the game. So I feel like there's a lot of confusion in that sort of sense. There's a lot of people out there that I think they give their opinions about MX Simulator, but they just don't fully actually understand every aspect of it, because I'm telling you right now, it takes a long time to really fully understand this game, man. Like, it takes a long time. It's not like a standard arcade motocross game where you can hop in there and play it for a couple months and you got a pretty good idea on everything. MX Simulator's not like that. I've been playing this game for 3-4 years straight, like damn near every day, and I'm still finding new stuff. I'm still finding different stuff to the game. I'm still advancing on everything that I do with it and all the different stuff that you can actually adjust on the bike and everything about it. Now, I'm not saying that there's not any problems with MX Simulator, or there's not anything wrong with it, or there's not some things that some other motocross games do better than MX Simulator, because I definitely think that there are. Like, for instance, I think Reflex's terrain deformation system is better than MX Simulator, even though that's kind of a weird comparison because they're not even really the same kind of game as far as the way the dirt and terrain is made. But I still think overall Reflex's terrain deformation system is better, and you could certainly say that Milestone, you know, Supercross and motocross games, graphics are better than MX Simulator for sure, without a doubt. So you can make all these other kind of little comparisons here and there of things that are better in other motocross games than MX Simulator, but I feel like the things that MX Simulator does right, it does them perfectly. Like, literally as damn near perfect as you could possibly get a motocross video game. Like, as far as the way the bike feels, the inertia of the bike, the realism, the leaning, the way you almost crash but don't crash, the way you have to have throttle control, the way the back wheel slides, all of this little stuff on how the bike itself actually feels when you're riding it. That right there, it's so good in MX Simulator that it doesn't even seem real. It doesn't even seem possible that you can make a game this real feeling. And I know there's a lot of you guys out there that say, oh, no, MX Simulator is really not that real. You know, you kind of disagree with that point. And I just wish that I could somehow, send some sort of envisional, like send you my brain and have you be able to somehow experience my state of mind with playing MX Simulator all this time and becoming a pro in the game, and not only becoming a pro, which is a task in itself, but then trying to become like I've had some top fives in pro races, so getting to that point's another task in itself, and how much I've learned about it and how much I've seen, the real potential of the game. I just wish that I could somehow like directly explain what I've seen and how that feels to some of you guys that don't understand it, because it takes you a long time playing the game before you ever even see those things, before you ever even realize those things and realize that how much movement you can get on the bike setup wise, because at the beginning it kind of feels like the bike's super stiff, like on a real dirt bike the first time you ride it, that kind of thing. You don't realize, I think a lot of early on people with MX Simulator, they don't realize all of the potential in all the different things you can change with the way the bike can feel and stuff like that. But there is just so many facets to MX Simulator that at a first glance, it's so easy to just miss. It's so easy to just not even see it, right? And I don't say this in a cocky way. Trust me, I don't, dude. But I have played way too much of these motocross games out here, man. I mean, I've literally, like, pert near, kind of tossed away probably 3 or 4 years of my life in gameplay time, dog. I'm not talking about, like, 3 or 4 years that I've been playing motocross games, like 3 or 4 years gameplay time into motocross games, whether it be the crazy amount of time I put into Reflex on Xbox 360, and then the time I put into it on PC, and then all the old school motocross games, and then getting into MX Simulator, becoming a pro at that, becoming a top 5 pro at that, leading main events, all that kind of jazz, racing on that, and playing all the milestone games except like the very first one. I think I played, MXGP 2, 3, and then MXGP Pro, and then official Monster Energy Supercross game, MX vs. ATV Alive. A lot of people don't understand how much I played that back in the day when it first came out, but I did. Played MX vs. ATV Supercross. I've played all of these games. So whenever I say I have a true, full understanding of them, I honestly mean that. I'm not saying that in some sort of like cocky way, like, oh, I've played all these games more than you, that means I'm better than all of you, and da-da-da-da, all these little crazy random things people try to come up with that, I'm like trying to like boost myself up by saying that and whatnot. It's not like that. I'm just trying to explain that so that like, I understand what's going on in these motocross games, man. It's not just some random dude out here giving his opinions about motocross games. It's only really played a couple of them. Like, I played all of them, bro. And all of them way too much at that, Like, I mean, this has been like my life and a half. And not to mention, I raced dirt bikes in real life for 6-7 years plus, raced on all that, did that for a while. So I've got the real life riding experience. I'm not saying I'm like some, super fast amateur in real life or anything like that, but I had it somewhat figured out in real life. I mean, I could whip the bike over pretty good. I could get her going fast on some tracks, certain tracks, depending on how good I learned them, hitting, 150-foot plus tabletops in real life. Like, I understood real life riding, but not to like a super pro level or anything, but I still had a lot of experience in that sense. So I'm able to take all these things that I've learned about all this and put that into my opinions. You see what I'm saying? And that's where it all comes from. So it really does have a strong backing and a strong base to it. But with MX Simulator, it is just insane when you go into the content in this game. It's like, it is unreal. It's laughable at how much you're paying for all these other motocross games for the amount of content you're getting, aka tracks, bikes, all that kind of stuff, gear, bike skins, that whole 9 yards. I mean, every other motocross game out there literally has like 1/10,000th of the amount of content in it that MX Simulator has, because of how long this game's been out and because of how much community-made stuff has been made in the game. And I understand that's not really like the base version of the game, but who cares? I mean, you're still only paying $30-$40 for MX Simulator, which is not even a AAA price game, and you're getting all that content for free. Every bit of it for free. There are some weird little like paid stuff here and there on MX Simulator. Some people try to charge for certain things, but that's very, very few and far between. I mean, that's like, you hardly ever see that, especially nowadays. Most of your tracks are free. And the thing about it is all of the old stuff, you can still download it to this day and ride on it. That's what's crazy about it. So you've got every single Replica Supercross series, tracks-wise, dating all the way back to 2010. Okay, just imagine that. Some of you guys that are fans of these like newer milestone Supercross games, you know, you get like 1 year of replica tracks. Imagine having all 18 rounds of the 2010 Supercross tracks, replicas. All 18 rounds of the 2011 Supercross tracks. All 18 rounds of the 2012 Supercross tracks. And then the 2013 Supercross tracks. 2014 Supercross tracks. All 18 rounds of the 2015 Supercross tracks. 2016 Supercross tracks. I can't even fucking say there's so many of them. 2018, 17, 18, 19 Supercross tracks. You got every single replica Supercross track dating all the way back. I mean, that is unreal. That's like damn near 100 plus, you know, replica Supercross tracks in a game that is less than a AAA priced motocross game. It's just unreal. Oh, and not to mention, every single motocross replica track. You've got your Redbuds, your Southwick replicas, multiple different years of renditions of that. You've got all of your replica side, all of your pro racing in the game, which takes you a long time to get good at. It's something that, you know, you have to work your way up through the tiers just like you would in real life. So you really do build this like persona and like kind of like who you are as a rider in MX Simulator, just like you would as who you are as a rider and your skills and everything in real life and how you work your way up. It's the same kind of thing. You know, you work your way up at kind of local racing, like racing on the random servers. You get pretty good at that. Takes you a long time to get good at that. You learn stuff. You change your setup. You work on that months and months and months. You learn how to ride on the tracks. You eventually get to the point where you can possibly try to race in an amateur race. And then you get in there and you got to prove yourself. And then you get to actually go in there and get a Pro A license. And you can go in there and start racing in the pros. And you got to race in the 250s and prove yourself on that. And then you get up into the 450 class. And all this stuff, man. It's the full package. If you're looking for like you're riding a real dirt bike in real life, but in a video game. In every way that you can possibly imagine that. Not only just the feeling on the bike, all that kind of stuff, but also the actual racing community and what you can do in the racing events and stuff like that. It's all there, dude. It's all there. And it's crazy. So, and not to mention, not all those replica tracks, Supercross, Motocross, but then you've got all the European some of the European tracks out there. You've got your MX Nation replica tracks. You've got, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. You've got your, basically like, you know, replica tracks, but they're not AMA tracks. They're just kind of local vibe tracks, like Milestone SX replica tracks, multiple different versions of that. You've got Minio's replica tracks. You've got everything, dude. It's crazy. If it's some more so like popular local vibe track out there, it's probably been made in MX Simulator before, you know? So that's just so cool. And not to mention, all those tracks have different tractions on them, different jump designs, different dirt decals and looks, different stadiums, different graphical, whether it be, you know, the fidelity of the sky box or the lighting or, you know, whatever, the fidelity of the dirt, you know, all that kind of stuff, the way your whole entire berms are designed and ruts are designed, pre-made and all that can be totally different. And it is totally different on all those tracks. The braking bumps, the roughness, all different on all those tracks. You know, the slickness of the track, the grippiness of the track, the sand tracks feel different, actually like sand tracks. You know, all that kind of stuff is there. And it's crazy. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even mention, you can have fantasy tracks on MX Simulator, like shit that you ain't never seen in your entire life in a motocross game. And I've been one of the biggest components to that whenever, you know, MX Simulator really started going down that fantasy track road. I was one of the biggest people that started all that with MX Simulator. I made the first space track in any motocross game ever before, and that's on MX Simulator, and then continued to basically make every single planet track in the game, then made dimension tracks, then made rainforest tracks, then made this kind of track that you've never seen before, and that kind of track that you've never seen before, and the list just goes on and on and on. Tracking a volcano, really started pushing the tropical designs of tracks super hardcore, like you see nowadays in MX versus ATV All Out, and like you've seen a little bit back in the day of some of the old school MX versus ATV days, like some of those tropical design tracks. You can really push all of these cool biomes and vibes and themes on MX Simulator because there's no limit to what you can make. So you can make anything. You can put palm trees with lava. You can put ice with water on a track, or brownie mixed with sand on the track. You can put anything your heart desires, dude. Anything your mind can imagine. And I've tried to explain this to people. You never want to look at MX Simulator just like it's this pre-made, very, you can only make these certain things, like real-life design style stuff. You can make anything, and it's been proven, man. I mean, moon tracks, Mars tracks, everything. Everything, dude. You got mud tracks, wet tracks, rain tracks, all of that. Trail tracks, enduro tracks, where you can actually cross over logs and rocks and have water ponds that are more slick than the rest of the track and bounce off of collidable trees, and all of that's there. So you've got basically every single kind of track design that you can possibly imagine. You know how in a lot of motocross and supercross games, especially if they don't have any like custom content or anything like that, a lot of times you won't be able to have like super huge jumps or super hard rhythms or like a 500-foot jump or some long jump, tall jump, crazy stuff like that, or some just practice like half pipe whip jump or all this cool stuff. You don't ever really get to experience that in a lot of other motocross games. But with MX Simulator, you can not only make these really cool biomes and themes and different like fantasy style tracks, you can also go in there and make fantasy style on tracks. So like make literally like a 700-foot tabletop, right? Which is like, that would be damn near impossible to build in real life, much less actually try to hit without totally slaying yourself. But, you can do that in MX Simulator. You can make the craziest rhythm section you've ever imagined in your life. Like 5 200-foot double jumps in a row or whatever, or the biggest whoop section that you can even imagine. So when it comes to content, MX Simulator is the absolute monster on that side. There ain't no other game out there motocross-wise even coming close content-wise, because it's been out for so long, been out for a decade plus, and people are still playing MX Simulator, and that just goes to show you, the true potential of this game and how amazing this game actually is. But I think the big reason why you don't see like a lot of mainstream, like high volume amounts of people playing MX Simulator and it really getting that like super exposure and advertising and stuff like you see with the official Monster Energy Supercross game is just simply because the creator of this game basically does no advertising at all. I mean, I'm doing God's work out here with my MX Simulator YouTube videos as far as like how it's propelling MX Simulator and giving it kind of that advertisement, because I'm doing more advertisement for this game than the creator of the game is doing. So it just goes to show you, there is still so many people behind this game and playing this game a decade later, and there's basically been no advertisement for it. If there was actually real advertisement for MX Simulator, oh my God, the potential for this is like out of this world, literally, with the track designs that I make and everything. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, there's just so much to talk about with this game. It's hard to even, like, put it all into one video, and I have problems putting it all into one video anyways. You guys know me, goddamn 25-minute, 30-minute long videos here. But it's hard to, like, wrap it all up in one why it's the greatest of all time. I went and tried to explain the content to you. You've got everything from realistic tracks, replica tracks, trail tracks, fantasy tracks, just random custom tracks. They might have a real design, but they're not anything that's actually in real life. You see what I'm saying? So you can go in there and make like something that's like Redbud, but not. It's like your own design of it. You've got everything like that. Fantasy, space, huge jump tracks, easy tracks, hard tracks, tight tracks, fast tracks, slow tracks, little tracks, big tracks. You got it all, everything. I mean, I don't know, dude. MX Simulator is something else. It is something else, and people just don't understand it. And I don't get it for the life of me, man. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I push this game so hard and I play it every single day. It's because it has that endless feeling to it, man. You know how in real life, when you ride dirt bikes in real life, how it has this endless sort of like, you feel like you're never really going to get tired of real life motocross. You're always going to want to ride real life motocross. There's always going to be a reason for it, whether it be you're trying to get better at it, or there's cool new tracks to ride on, or cool new freestyle tricks, or whatever the case may be, trying to whip it bigger, whatever, any of that kind of stuff, right? Well, that is the same kind of feeling you get with MX Simulator. You feel like you can always get better at it, always get faster at it, and I mean always. Like, you know how in some arcade motocross games, it's like, oh yeah, you play it for like 4 or 5 months and you really, really feel like, okay, now you finally maxed it out, right? Because you play it for that 4 or 5 months and it feels like you're getting better. You're hitting bigger lines, doing different stuff on the tracks to go faster, whatever. But for the most part, most arcade motocross games, I mean, at maximum, it'll take you 3 or 4 months to be like totally fast in that game, like as fast as you can possibly go, pretty much. If you're playing it every day for like 3 months on most arcade motocross games, then it basically hits this cutoff point where it doesn't really feel like you can get all that much faster. Well, MX Simulator doesn't have a cutoff point. You can just get faster. You play it for a year, and then you get even faster than that, and then you play it for 2 years, and then it's like, oh, you feel like you've got it maxed out, and then all of a sudden someone hops in a random server that you're in and laps your ass, and then you're like, oh, shit, I can get even faster than that, and then you spend another year on it, right, and then you're like deep into the pro racing, and then you got to learn super consistency, not just the speed aspect of it. Then you got to learn how to race with the nerves, because there's so much energy behind the pro racing and everyone around you. You got to learn how to be able to lap people in collision and all these other aspects that don't have anything to do with just the endless skill gap on the bike filling and all that, as far as leaning, controlling the bike, controlling the throttle, controlling the brakes. You can set up everything how you want it in the game as far as setup wise. A lot of people don't realize this about MX Simulator. They think it's this very you don't unlock anything for the bike. You can't really adjust anything on it. There's not much to it like that. But in all reality, you can make that bike do anything you want it to do. You can totally adjust every aspect of the power delivery with the gearing. So you've got like, let me see how to kind of add this up in my head. You probably got like 30 or 20, I don't know, something like that, different gearing options in it. But then you've got all your different bike dynos, which have different power deliveries, different types of way that you, the power curves on the bike and everything's different on some of those different bikes. So you've not only got that, but then you can go in there and adjust the gearing, literally like tooth by tooth, right? And it makes this massive difference. I've noticed that with a lot of arcade motocross games, even though they give you a lot of these adjustments, they don't really make that big of a difference in the long run. It's not really truly like that big of a deal, you know what I'm saying? But with MX Simulator, it is a massive deal. All the different stuff that you can adjust, and you can adjust every single thing you can possibly imagine about the suspension on the bike, even as far as adjusting, fork compression, shock compression, rebound, high speed, low speed. You've got fork oil level. You've got everything you can imagine that you could possibly want to try to adjust on a bike. Then you've got adjustments on things like how fast your rider pulls up on the bike and pushes down, like vertical type adjustments and stuff like that. You can adjust everything you want to about the first person camera. You can change the angle of it, height of it, forward, backwards, how far field of view that you got. You can change everything about the third person camera field of view, everything like that. So you got that full range of adjustment on all of that, which I don't know if there's any other motocross game out there that gives you that much adjustment on how you're actually viewing the game. Like, I just don't think there is, especially not arcade-wise, right? I really don't think that there is anything like that. But, and then you get into the different kind of bike dynos with the 450s feeling completely different than the 125s, and then the 250Fs feeling totally different than both of those. And then you got 50cc bikes in the game, and You got 252 strokes in the game, which have their entire own feeling to them as well. You know, that's what MX Simulator captures very well, is that really making each bike feel different as far as the inertia of it and the weight of the bike and the power of the bike. I mean, it's like real life, dude. I mean, that's the story of MX Simulator. It's like real life, dude. If I could put something like a little asterisk out beside MX Simulator, that's what it would be. It's like real life, dude. There's really nothing else to even say. I mean, that sums it up right there. Every aspect of it. And I know the erode or terrain deformation system, whatever you want to call it, on MX Simulator, that started to become a bit more of a thing in the like recent years, but it still isn't quite like to the level that you think it should be or would be in a simulator. You know, it still is lacking in a lot of aspects, but it is there, right? So you can have dynamically changing rut systems in the game and stuff like that, but people don't understand as far as, oh my god, dude, this is that nasty flow. Like, I'm just going off on this video, man. Okay, so like, people don't understand how crazy it is to be able to basically, you're importing anything you want to in the game. So you can import any sort of gear that you could possibly imagine. You could have your own logos on the gear, literally like your own real life logos on gear in MX Simulator, basically like sponsoring yourself and promoting yourself that way. You can make your own helmets, own boots, anything you want to make. You can make your rider a chicken or a spaceman, you know, a dude in a spacesuit, whatever you want to make. You can make your own models in the game. You can ride on like crazy, like ride on a horse model in the game. There's anything you want to do, man. You can put anything down as a decal, so you can make any kind of dirt, any kind of terrain like that. You can morph the terrain in just about any kind of way you can imagine, raise, lower, a full in-game editor that's actually not that hard to learn, a full in-game track editor, you know, that comes with the game when you buy it, and it's very, like, very kind of easy to figure out what's going on. It doesn't take a whole lot of learning. I mean, it does take a little bit of learning, especially how to get objects and stuff in there, but as far as just being able to, like, maneuver and manipulate the terrain, that's really not hard to do in the game at all. All you got to do is go in there and watch one little, you know, track making guide or tutorial or whatever, and you pretty much got her figured out. Like, it ain't that hard to do. So what that does, it basically creates the ability for anybody to get into the track making in the game. You don't have to be like this super technician or some nerd at, you know, having to learn coding and stuff like that. You just go in there and you can kind of figure out what you're doing with it, and that's what it is. And that's why you see so many tracks that are made for the game. That's why you see so much in it, because it's easy to make it. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues with a lot of these other motocross games out there. Even if they do happen to have some sort of track editor or something like that, it's too damn hard to use it, you know? Like, I mean, even the Reflex track editor was a little bit, like, weird, and you had to download these little side things to kind of get it to work, and it wasn't, like, actually integrated into the game. You know what I mean? Like the way MX Simulators is, and you can edit it in the game. You know, you got a full top-down editor, raise, lower tool, all your little tools. You can make gradients, make your jumps, however you want to make them. You can move your decals around in the game, in the track editor, all that kind of stuff. So it's actually pretty simple to make tracks in the game. And yeah, that is just insane, the potentials of being able to import any sort of image to put on the bike, the gear, the track, import any sort of model. You can make an alien model, a Spire model, whatever, you know, your own tough blocks, your own finish line jump, banners, whatever it is, you know, whatever you can imagine, your own rock models, log models, anything in the game. You can put it in there. It's possible. You can do it. You might just have to take a little bit of time to learn how to do it, but it is possible. So basically, it's an infinite world of possibilities when it comes to content and what you can put in the game and actually ride with in the game. It's unlimited. So that's just the absolutely unreal aspect to MX Simulator in that sense, is it's got an infinite amount of replayability in that sense. And not only just in content-wise, but the way the bike feels also has an infinite amount of replayability to it because of how real it feels and how long it takes you to get good at it and how how frequently and consistently you have to play the game to keep your skill at it. You know, you have to stay sharp in this game. You have to play it often and race often to keep that race pace and that race skill and all of that kind of stuff, just like it is in real life. You know, if you're really good at real life motocross and you don't ride for a year, like, you're going to be rusty, dog. Same way with MX Simulator. If you're really good at it and then you just don't play it for an entire year, it's kind of like you're having to relearn the entire game again. But you do kind of, you know, you keep a little bit of what you had at the beginning, but it is definitely like real life in that sense of having to keep yourself sharp in the game. But I mean, it's just insane. When you start understanding how the bike feels as far as the little minute micro like movements of the bike, I mean, they're unreal. They are just unreal in every way that you can imagine, man. As far as like, you know, like when you'll hit a braking bump too hard and it'll kind of send your bike up forward, but then you save it, or you come around a corner and you're sliding your back wheel around, but you don't completely crash. All that kind of stuff is like just astronomical on MX Simulator. It's amazing the way you can high side and crash. You can flip over the front of the bars and crash. The whoops in the game is like trying to learn real supercross whoops in real life. Like when you first get on them, you think it's impossible. You think there's no way you can do it. How the hell are people hitting these whoops? Just like you do in real life. And then before you know it, riding whoops over and over and over and learning techniques and stuff, you eventually finally get it down. Then before you know it, 3 years later, you're wide open, fifth gear, tapped out in a whoop section. You can actually get through it, and it's this whole like experience and true experience in a game. You know, I'm not talking about you just getting experience points like you get in all these other motocross games. You actually get like a skill experience and a something that's like it is has a lot of weight behind it, a lot of value behind it. You know, if you become really good at MX Simulator, you're good at MX Simulator. Like, and that means something. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not easy to do that, and you can't just pay your way to the top. There's no little, you can't just like kind of falsely be super fast at MX Simulator other than truly being good at the game. You have to play it all the time and actually grind it out and become good at it like that. You can't just get there in some kind of fake, false way. You know, so that's what makes it mean a lot more when you do get good at it. But, yeah, I mean, MX Simulator, it is the motocross game of all time. All time, without a doubt, hands down. Nobody's even coming close. Nobody's even competing. This game right here, legitimately, if you're comparing it to all these other motocross games, especially some of these AAA motocross games, like, MX Simulator should literally be $10,000 for what you're getting out of it. I mean, seriously. If you're comparing it content-wise, bike design, physics-wise, all the different kind of gear you can get in the game, all the different tracks in the game, all that kind of stuff, all the realistic power curve bike dynos to the real-life dynos, all that, this game should literally be $10,000. And it's not even the price of a AAA motocross game. It's like $40, dude. It's not even $60. Oh my God. Go buy this game right now. Don't waste another second. Now, it may be a bit of a learning curve at the beginning. It may be a bit of a, you got to kind of learn the atmosphere of the game. You got to learn little intricate things like how to set your controller up right, how to turn off the arcade physics in the game, which makes the game feel stupid. All these little things you got to learn. How to set up your first person camera right. All this stuff, you know, how to set your stability up, which is like the whole steering of the game. All this stuff like that. It takes you a little while to learn it, but once you do, man, it's worth it. Like, I'm telling you, it is worth it 100%. It just takes you a minute. You've got to invest in the game a little bit. You've got to actually you know, really spend some time on it. And once you do that, you see why MX Simulator truly is the greatest of all time. Because even if you don't want to become a pro at this game, you can still just play it for fun. You can just go on some fun free riding style tracks, just try to throw some huge whips. The whole whip system to the game is super realistic, just like everything else in the game. You build your entire own, not only style on the bike in general, but also your whip styles in the game. You can do every kind of whip you can possibly imagine. Turn up, turn down, pancakes, sideways, straight up and down, standard whip around, anything you can imagine. You can do 360s, you can do backflips, you can do front flips, any variation of a flip, right? You can do that. You can ride wheelies, you can do stoppies, which is a whole learning experience in itself, just like it is in real life. The only thing you can't really do in MX Simulator right now is actually freestyle tricks, in the sense of like, you know, knack-knacks where you're pulling your leg off and Supermans and stuff like that. You can't really do that, but everything else you can do as far as that goes. You know, backflips, front flips, just you can't really take your feet or your hands off the bike. So that's kind of how that is. But the whole thing where you can actually do a scrub versus a whip in MX Simulator is unreal amazing in that sense, because you've got that stability adjuster on your steering, so you basically have any sort of quickness of steering that you could possibly imagine. So you can like super steer before you come off a jump face, and you will literally do something that looks exactly like a scrub and not like a whip at all. Or you can do more of just a mellow, not turn as hardcore and not turn as much until you're like already in the air a little bit, and then you do more of a true whip, and it actually looks more like a whip instead of a scrub. And it's got that whole, like, you know, half basically that C shape, like half moon shape, crescent moon, whatever you want to call it. That kind of like, that's how you got to go like left, right, left, up a jump face to actually do a whip in real life. Well, MX Simulator is the same way. You can't just like go up the jump face straight and then turn in the air and expect it to do anything, just like it is in real life. You know, if you jump straight off a jump in real life and turn your handlebars, ain't shit going to happen other than your handlebars are going to turn. You know, you're not actually going to whip. So it's that whole like actually turning in inertia and whipping it around before you even come off the jump face. MX Simulator captures that perfectly. It's a whole skill and something you got to get good at and learn over time. And all of that, man, there's just so much to this game that is not in other motocross games at all, or it's done absolutely terribly in comparison to this game. You know, and there's certainly some things that they can improve on in this game over time, but that's the cool thing about MX Simulator. It's got such a vibrant, living, breathing community, even though there is some toxicity in it, stuff like that, just like there is with any community. But there are a lot of good people out there that are willing to help you out and willing to help you figure out what you got to do on the bike and stuff like that, even though you need to be careful on who you believe, because some people think they know a lot about this game and they really don't, and then they're trying to give advice out here, and, you know, and then before you know it, you've set your bike up completely wrong. What the most important thing is, you want to listen to yourself. You want to figure out what feels the best to you, because comfortability in this game overrides anything else. And I've had to learn that the hard way, but it really does. You know, certain things might feel a little better here and there, but if it's not as comfortable, then you really shouldn't do it. You really shouldn't have that kind of setup. But what I was trying to get at is this game is so cool in the sense of it's constantly evolving. So it's not like one of those games where you just play it for a couple months or a year and then it's like, well, that game's kind of dead. There's no more content. There's no more stuff for it. Guess I'll just quit playing it, right? MX Simulator is not like that. You've got constant updates to it. JLV goes in there and updates the suspension. So the whole dynamic of the game and the atmosphere and the competitive nature of it changes in that sense, because now you're having to learn like a new high-speed, low-speed compression rebound adjustments. I remember when he added that in there, and then a new dyno will come out and the bikes are faster or more linear power or something like that, and then you got to go in there and learn that, just like how in real life, how they come out with newer bikes, newer adjustments, newer things you can do with them and make them better. It's the same way with MX Simulator. So it's not a stagnant experience. It's this living, breathing, evolving, warping world in motocross gaming. You know, you've got every year of tracks evolving, replica tracks, custom tracks. The way the tracks are designed, JLV's going there trying to make some improvements to the road systems and some other stuff like that. I mean, there's no telling what we could eventually have in this game, because JLV is still working on it. So it's not like, you know, the creators is like, give up on that, we're done doing that. No, it's a game of all time. It's a game that's going to last forever, in my opinion, because of those things. So either way, moral of the story is MX Simulator is like real-life motocross, but in a virtual world, in every way that you can possibly imagine that.